Hey, good morning. It's Saturday again. My name is Ray, and over here in the UK, in London, as a matter of fact. And today the sun is shining, thank goodness. Hey, how do you like my well, I guess it's my wedding gift of the two monks, basically in transcendent kind of meditative mode. And that's what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to share with you. I've just finished my session. I'm looking a little bit discombobulated and disheveled, and has nothing to do with meditation. It's just that having just basically, woken up, gotten out of bed, brand new day, taken on, bright sunshine, which I love. I'm a bit of a solar baby, solar being, if you know what I mean. And yeah, solar power for me all the way. I wish I lived near a beach, but hey, I'm here in the UK. I've got family here, and living in a very, very hectic and kind of urban environment, which on many levels I really, really love, particularly in a place like London, which is incredibly multicultural, very international, not just because of its history, but because of what's actually going on nowadays. There's a huge coming together of people from all walks of life, and it's a great kind of a vantage point for new things happening and old things having happened as well. And it's a real kind of potpourri, if you will, a real mixture of those dynamics and that essence that it just resonates, multi-culti, as they say. And with my background, I grew up rather nomadic. My father was kind of a roving university professor, and every couple years and so on, we would move on to the next contract and travel the world, backpacking, planes, trains, automobiles, camels, donkeys, riverboats, canoes, airplanes, military Land Rovers, whatever we could actually get from A to B, we took it. Dad was more of the thinking that we only took planes if we absolutely had to. Say if we had to fly over a war zone because you just couldn't get through, or you just weren't allowed to go through there, particularly at the time when I was growing up. You couldn't really travel that much behind the Iron Curtain in Eastern Europe, for example. We did travel a little bit down into the southern regions at one point after buying our VW Bug in Germany and making our way all through Austria down into what was then Yugoslavia and into Bulgaria and then into Istanbul, where we ended up living for 4 years. In fact, I swam from Asia to Europe at the age of 11. That was kind of a dare a bunch of us boys did. We just said, well, I bet you can't do it. And the other one said, I can. I said, let's go for it. And off we went. We actually swam the Bosphorus. So, there's lots and lots of stories of exploration and adventure that I've had, that many of us have had in many, many different ways. And mine just happened to be a lot more, shall we say, footloose. And there's pros and cons to that. So where I find in that kind of hecticness and that kind of busyness or noisiness or just kind of apparent craziness, now that I've gotten a little bit older, can you see my Movember? Raising awareness for men's health. Interesting movement. Grow a mustache for the month of November to raise awareness, and also there's a fundraiser aspect to it as well, but that's a whole separate issue. But in that busyness of life, and the information age, we're being bombarded with information, and hopefully this is not a bombardment, this is not noise, this is just a sharing of something I hope is quite inspiring, and at least it is for me, is the whole notion of meditation. And it's not so much that, that kind of, it doesn't have to be any kind of religious denomination. That's your own personal experience. That's your own personal kind of perspective, and that's yours. And I'm not here to discuss anything of that. That just, there happens to be a couple of monks in Tibet, of a painting, of an experience of the artist, which I particularly like, of that part of the world, having traveled there as a kid up into the Himalayas, and so that resonates with me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's some kind of religious overtone or undertone in there, other than just more of a kind of a sitting of being still. And that stillness is what I'm talking about, that sense of calm, that sense of groundedness, that sense of being centered, that sense of being in tune and in touch with self, and on a whole nother level with everything of that around, because we're not separate. However, often we live these lives of where we're in this physical plane, we're in this kind of dynamic where we often think that we are separate, that we are this individual, we're making our way through, and often it feels that way. And in fact, in many levels, that's what we're taught. And yes, it is a singular experience that when we stub our toe, or we achieve something, that it is that singular experience. But that vibration, or that energy of that kind of emotive experience of whether that high of sense of accomplishment and achievement, or that low of sadness or grief or whatever, or sense of loss or disappointment. I mean, all those are all very, very real. But like the yin and yang, and life in general is it can be elemental, where you've got the four elements or the four seasons and so on. Wood, fire, water, air, and the four seasons of basically birth, growth, life, death. It's all part of the cycle. It's all cyclical, and we have these constant movement and flowing. But the point is that often we can get out of whack because we get so kind of myopic, or so singularly focused on something, which is great for achieving things when you set a goal and you set a task. But often what happens is that if we're not aware, using our peripheral vision and so on, and our peripheral vision, metaphorically speaking, also in our whole sense of awareness, we can go bounding off headlong into something and not really aware of what's going on around us, only to find out that had we just tweaked things ever so slightly at the source, like a compass, because as you do that, you can get further and further away from where you actually want to be, but you can look over and go, damn, that's where I need to be, or damn, something didn't feel that was the one, or oh my God, that's the one, or you might look and go, thank God I'm not there, because this is in fact it's more of like a confirmation. It's not because you're caught up in comparisons, but it's a confirmation that where you are. But hopefully you got that from your resonance. And to do that is you need to tap in. And a lot of that tapping in is an inner journey. And to be able to do that, one needs to sit still and clear away the clutter and the noise of the mind and the body, because it could be pain, it could be discomfort, it could be an unsettled stomach, it could be gas, it could be indigestion, or it could be just actually feeling really, really good because you've actually been taken care of, you've been eating well, you've been sleeping well, you've been exercising well, you've been feeding yourself well, and you can actually stop and kind of go, well, actually, that noise is because there's so much vibration of vitality there, and even that needs to calm down, because it's about balance, it's about harmony, and about harmonizing. And to have that kind of dynamic of balance is you can't have, like, it's not like, oh God, I'm so super, super happy all my time, I'm so Pollyanna and everything, so, and then that becomes only what is known, and then it becomes just the norm, and then there's no kind of ups and downs, peaks, valleys, anything to kind of cross-reference or check as to whether in fact that is real. Because often we think, like similar the other way, is you can become too sad and to the point of depression, and more serious than that, is, you can get the extremes, and the pendulum is constantly doing this. But because those are points of extremes, and even though they're not points, finite, because nothing's finite, but it appears to be in linear perspective of time, and time is the human construct of basically there's all this life and all this movement and all this dynamism and all this experience, potentiality of an opportunity to experience in between. And it's when we give ourselves the time, I should say, more the space of the an opportunity as of being open and receptive to receive, not just information, but just energy, vitality, life, vibrance, vibration, essence of what is, resonance of what is being. And as the kind of the term is framed, I know it sounds a bit cliche, is that we're referred to as human beings as opposed to human doings. And that's, I think, really, really important to remember and to be reminded of. I'm not some kind of, yogi, meditative, holier-than-thou, righteous, on a soapbox, heavy-duty practitioner. Absolutely not. In fact, I could serve myself better by becoming more and more engaged in that aspect of stillness. But I do tend to gravitate, and I do tend to move within that spectrum And I have my extremes. I mean, I'm the first to say it. I mean, I'm not by far having, transcended to the point of, karmic nirvana or into, the totally righteous life. But I'm more and more on a path of my making that has that included in it. And why do I bring that up? Because, again, some people might think, oh, who gives a damn? Because interestingly enough, having spent time and having spoken to and read about and heard about and listened to and interviewed people who are in fact walking their talk, living their lives of their dreams, being what is known as being successful, people who are very wealthy. And I say wealthy as opposed to just being rich, because one can be rich, financially rich, but extremely unwealthy, because richness seems to be more about what you have. It's more of that kind of almost tangible kind of aspect of it. Wealth is kind of more of who you are or who you're being as an expression of that. So you can be extremely wealthy, but you might actually be money poor. But wealthy because of experience, wealthy because of wisdom, wealthy because of what it is that you bring to the table as far as being of service to people. And I think, the wealth of experience is the term that's often referred to, but I mean, there are many aspects of that. And I think that when we, tap into these things, from what I've observed and what I've even experienced myself, those opportunities to really live our lives here as we have them now to the fullest seems to present itself. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, and I can also only share what others have shared with me and what I read about. And it seems to make sense, because we're finding out more and more and more is that the whole thing about vibration and energy and coming through experience and wisdom is that when we allow more, as opposed to trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, as often happens in education or in this 9-to-5 grind of what it is that we're expected to do and how we're supposed to integrate with society in a particular way. Some aspects are very, very crucial and very essential in order to do that, but a lot of it's completely screwed up. I mean, if you can't, and anybody who's not paying attention would maybe not see this, but those of us who are, the whole notion of the whole economic cycle around the world, as we know, if that's not a pyramid structure, you have, the few at the top taking care. I mean, some may think that that's the way it should be. Personally, I don't think it should be shaped like a pyramid. There's no reason why it can't be a square or a circle or anything of as more of a mixture, as opposed to you have this hierarchical structure, because I don't think that's necessarily what's valuable. There are people out there who are top earners, but there's no leadership quality within them. They just happen to just bark and order people around, but they're not really leading. There are many people that are so-called leaders who fall miserably onto, who we've put them on these pedestals and in fact have no kind of redeeming quality at all. In fact, are extremely corrupt or they're morally bankrupt in many ways. And I just look at the whole kind of banking system and the economic cycle and the whole way of that's doing is that we've essentially, if you look at it, we've learned nothing. And whether we've learned nothing because we haven't applied what we're learning effectively, we've learned nothing because we're not actually engaging with it. And it's that kind of out of balanceness, that unbalance, that disharmony, that creates these knock-on effects that basically are tragic. We have warfare, we have upheaval, we have violence, we have crime, we have all these things, not just because people are messed up individuals, is because sometimes life is tough and there's people who feel that they're pushed into a situation that they have no other way of dealing with things than to lash out, or they've been cornered, or they're desperate and they have to steal to survive, or so on. And I'm not by any means condoning that. I'm just saying that I can understand where it comes from. And it seems to me that some of the kind of the research and the experiences, what have gone on in prisons and schools, is the value of meditation or taking that time to go calm and quiet inside adds so much value. And it instills a much more harmonious existence within the individual that can only be a good thing. So It's been shown in schools that it works. It's been shown in prisons that it works. And it's interestingly that when people seem to practice it more, however it comes off, it can be just, someone can be chiming, someone can be having no music, somebody can be in silence, somebody can be standing on their head, sitting in their chair, lying down, whatever form it takes or whatever is what works for them, or for you, or for us, I should say, is the way to go. Because when we find that sense of calm, we have so much more capacity and much more ability to not only contend with the challenging stuff, as opposed to just freaking out and adding fuel to the fire, but we also can have, we're more receptive because there's less noise to actually possibly unpack things that might be a bit confusing or overwhelming or not quite well presented, so we can't really understand the broadcast. But the more able to focus and see the bigger picture and see the smaller picture as well, and at the same time, that seems to happen most when people have that lack of just freneticness. And I'm only sharing this with you is because when I've spoken to people who are successful, they attribute some aspect of this in their lives to their success. And so the essential point is that if you don't feel that you're ready, or you're not experiencing the success that you feel that you deserve, or that you've been working really, really hard for, is to really take pause, take some time for reflection, do some introspection, and do some meditation of whatever shape, form, and you'll be surprised. And it's not just a magic pill where you sit down and just, like anything, it takes practice, or it just takes doing, and it takes to get rid of the noise that we're constantly bombarded with us in the information age, with all the gadgetry that we have, that seems to make it even more instantaneous, is that the more time that we push the bookends apart and we allow space for ourselves to just be, good things happen. So when you give that the time it needs to get to that point, you will have your experience, you'll have your moment, you'll have your wow. And it's not just like, wow, I had an epiphany. It's just like, I see. Or, I feel. Or, I know what you mean. Not me, but just everything. Just what it is. And maybe that's it. So on that note, please, for yourself, because from that point on, it's what you then, your vibration around there. I mean, there's that whole kind of thing of a butterfly flaps its wings, and the turbulence of the wind that it makes can have a knock-on effect, and actually, energetically and on a physical level, have a turbulent impact, and that along with all the other things of what's going on in the climate and the weathers of the patterns of the world. You imagine all that turbulence going on, it's no wonder that we're having climate change. So I think if we're a little bit more conscious, even just a little bit, I mean I would prefer a lot more, but let's just say even just a little bit more conscious in what our actions and our decisions and our thought patterns are, and we're a little bit more, I don't want to say contained, but just more aware and kind of a part of that, engaged with that, and conscious with that, that then we have kind of more involvement in what is and what can be. And I think in that you can see that there is definitely a surgence of more awareness and more dynamism on that level, and more consciousness around the world. But transition and transformation takes time, and it changes shape and form, and it's very, very interesting how that unfolds. And some of us see that, revolutions and social upheaval and riots and all this as kind of what, it seems to get too much press time and too much airtime, but that is effectively kind of it's a lot of change going on, and sometimes you need that kind of change. Sadly, they seem to be violent in the way we shape them, but it's because we spotlight that. We see that is an effective way of doing things. If we were to spotlight other things and focus on more of those things, then maybe those things would take precedence. To me, it's an indication that change is happening. And then there's also going to be resistance to that, because there's always going to be a cause and effect and a counter effect. But I think once one finds one's own truth, truly taking the time to go there, that good things can follow. So on that note, I'm going to do my meditative walk around. The house is quiet. The kids are off doing their activities that feed them. And I have a blissful moment here to just reflect and share with you. And I'm just here to say, Om Namaste. You are blessed too. No religious overtones, other than just that I'm sharing a good message with you because I believe in you, I believe in us, I believe in humanity. And I really want the world that I've experienced to continue to experience good things, not just for myself, but for my kids, but for you. This is a wonderful place, and I think we really, really need to embrace it more and take care of it more, because it's taking care of us as long as we allow it. And on that note, make it a great day. Have a wonderful moment with yourself or with others, and we'll see you on the next one. So, thank you for taking the time sharing. See you later.